Section 3 of A Master of Mysteries. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. A Master of Mysteries by L.T. Mead and Robert Eustace. Chapter 2. The Warder of the Door. "If you don't believe it, you can read it for yourself," said Allen Clinton, climbing up the steps and searching among the volumes on the top shelf. I lay back in my chair. The beams from the sinking sun shone upon the stained glass of the windows of the old library, and dyed the rows of black leather volumes with bands of red and gold. "Here, Belle." I took a musty volume from Allen Clinton, which he had unearthed from its resting place. "It's about the middle of the book," he continued eagerly. "You will see it in big black Old English letters." I turned over the pages containing the family tree and other archives of the Clintons, till I came to the one I was seeking. It contained the curse which rested on the family since 1400. Slowly and with difficulty I deciphered the words of this terrible denunciation. "And in this cell its coffin lieth, the coffin which hath not human shape, for which reason no holy ground receiveth it. Here shall it rest to curse the family of ye Clintons from generation to generation, and for this reason, as soon as the soul shall pass from the body of each firstborn which is the heir, it shall become the warder of the door by day and by night. Day and night shall his spirit stand by the door, till the son shall release the spirit of the father from the watch and take his place, till his son in turn shall die. And whoso entereth into the cell shall be the prisoner of the soul that guardeth the door till it shall let him go." "What a ghastly idea!" I said, glancing up at the young man who was watching me as I read. "But as you say, this cell has never been found. I should say its existence was a myth, and, of course, the curse on the soul of the firstborn to keep the door shut as warder is absurd. Matter does not obey witchcraft." "The odd part of it is," replied Allen, "that every other detail of the Abbey referred to in this record has been identified, but this cell with its horrible contents has never been found." It was certainly a curious legend, and I allow it made some impression on me. I fancied, too, that somewhere I had heard something similar, but my memory failed to trace it. I had come down to Clinton Abbey 3 days before for some pheasant shooting. It was now Sunday afternoon. The family, with the exception of Sir Henry, Allen, and myself, were at church. Sir Henry, now nearly 80 years of age and a chronic invalid, had retired to his room for his afternoon sleep. The younger Clinton and I had gone out for a stroll round the grounds, and since we returned our conversation had run upon the family history, till it arrived at the legend of the family curse. Presently the door of the library was slowly opened, and Sir Henry, in his black velvet coat, which formed such a striking contrast to his snowy white beard and hair, entered the room. I rose from my chair, and giving him my arm, assisted him to his favourite couch. He sank down into its luxurious depths with a sigh, but as he did so, his eyes caught the old volume which I had laid on the table beside it. He started forward, took the book in his hand, and looked across at his son. "Did you take this book down?" he said sharply. "Yes, father, I got it out to show Belle. He is interested in the history of the Abbey, and—" "Then return it to its place at once," interrupted the old man, his black eyes blazing with sudden passion. "You know how I disliked having my books disarranged, and this one above all. Stay, give it to me." He struggled from the couch, and taking the volume, locked it up in one of the drawers of his writing table, and then sat back again on the sofa. His hands were trembling, as if some sudden fear had taken possession of him. "Did you say that Phyllis Curzon is coming tomorrow?" asked the old man presently of his son in an irritable voice. "Yes, father, of course. Don't you remember? Mrs. Curzon and Phyllis are coming to stay for a fortnight. And by the way," he added, starting to his feet as he spoke, "that reminds me, I must go and tell Grace." The rest of the sentence was lost in the closing of the door. As soon as we were alone, Sir Henry looked across at me for a few moments without speaking. Then he said, "I am sorry I was so short just now. I am not myself. I do not know what is the matter with me. I feel all to pieces. I cannot sleep. I do not think my time is very long now, and I am worried about Allen. The fact is, I would give anything to stop this engagement. I wish he would not marry." "I am sorry to hear you say that, sir," I answered. I should have thought you would have been anxious to see your son happily married."
"Most men would," was the reply, "but I have my reasons for wishing things otherwise."
"What do you mean?" I could not help asking.
"I cannot explain myself. I wish I could. It would be best for Alan to leave the old family die out. There perhaps I am foolish about it, and of course I cannot really stop the marriage, but I am worried and troubled about many things."
"I wish I could help you, sir," I said impulsively. "If there is anything I can possibly do, you know you only have to ask me."
"Thank you, Belle, I know you would, but I cannot tell you. Some day I may, but there I am afraid, horribly afraid."
The trembling again seized him, and he put his hands over his eyes as if to shut out some terrible sight.
"Don't repeat a word of what I have told you to Alan or anyone else," he said suddenly. "It is possible that some day I may ask you to help me, and remember, Belle, I trust you."
He held out his hand, which I took. In another moment the butler entered with the lamps, and I took advantage of the interruption to make my way to the drawing room. The next day the Curzons arrived, and a hasty glance showed me that Phyllis was a charming girl. She was tall, slightly built, with a figure both upright and graceful, and a handsome, somewhat proud face. When in perfect repose her expression was somewhat haughty, but the moment she spoke her face became vivacious, kindly, charming to an extraordinary degree. She had a gay laugh, a sweet smile, a sympathetic manner. I was certain she had the kindest of hearts, and was sure that Alan had made an admirable choice. A few days went by, and at last the evening before the day when I was to return to London arrived. Phyllis's mother had gone to bed a short time before, as she had complained of headache, and Alan suddenly proposed, as the night was a perfect one, that we should go out and enjoy a moonlight stroll. Phyllis laughed with glee at the suggestion, and ran at once into the hall to take a wrap from one of the pegs. "Alan," she said to her lover, who was following her, "you and I will go first."
"No, young lady, on this occasion you and I will have that privilege," said Sir Henry.
He had also come into the hall, and to our astonishment announced his intention of accompanying us in our walk. Phyllis bestowed upon him a startled glance, then she laid her hand lightly on his arm, nodded back at Alan with a smile, and walked on in front somewhat rapidly. Alan and I followed in the rear. "Now what does my father mean by this?" said Alan to me. "He never goes out at night, but he has not been well lately. I sometimes think he grows queerer every day." "He is far from well, I am certain," I answered. We stayed out for about half an hour, and returned home by a path which led into the house through a side entrance. Phyllis was waiting for us in the hall. "Where is my father?" asked Alan, going up to her. "He is tired and has gone to bed," she answered. "Good night, Alan." "Won't you come into the drawing room?" he asked in some astonishment. "No, I am tired." She nodded to him without touching his hand. Her eyes, I could not help noticing, had a queer expression. She ran upstairs. I saw that Alan was startled by her manner, but as he did not say anything, neither did I. The next day at breakfast I was told that the Curzons had already left the Abbey. Alan was full of astonishment and, I could see, a good deal annoyed. He and I breakfasted alone in the old library. His father was too ill to come downstairs. An hour later I was on my way back to London. Many things there engaged my immediate attention, and Alan, his engagement, Sir Henry, and the old family curse sank more or less into the background of my mind. 3 months afterwards, on the 7th of January, I saw to my sorrow in the Times the announcement of Sir Henry Clinton's death. From time to time, in the interim, I had heard from the son, saying that his father was failing fast. He further mentioned that his own wedding was fixed for the 21st of the present month. Now, of course, it must be postponed. I felt truly sorry for Alan, and wrote immediately a long letter of condolence. On the following day I received a wire from him, imploring me to go down to the Abbey as soon as possible, saying that he was in great difficulty. I packed a few things hastily, and arrived at Clinton Abbey at 6 in the evening. The house was silent and subdued. The funeral was to take place the next day. Clinton came into the hall and gripped me warmly by the hand. I noticed at once how worn and worried he looked. "This is good of you, Belle,"
he said. "I cannot tell you how grateful I am to